Hi guys, like he said, my name is Rebekah, and I have been in multiple forms of alternative education programs. So, starting in second grade, I was put into a charter school called Wasatch Peak Academy, and that ended up not going very well. So, after that, I was put back in public school, and then from there, I was homeschooled half-time, homeschooled full-time. And now I am a senior and I am pulled out half-time to work on my own projects with the freedom-based learning. So my first point with the freedom-based learning coming from a culture of public school where they tell you every move to make and you're handed your assignments with instructions, it was kind of a culture shock. So my dad pulled me out and he decided to go to the opposite end of the spectrum, which was complete freedom. There were no systems, no rules. It was just whatever I felt I wanted to do, he would support me and let me do it. So, I don't know how many of you have kids in public school, but if you were to guess, pulling a child out of public school and handing them all the free time plus internet access they could possibly want, how much productivity do you think would be going on? Not a lot. So I watched probably 3 hours of Netflix a day. I was on Pinterest and my life was not going in a very productive direction. So after that, my dad had to start asking himself, he was like, well, I want to do this freedom-based learning, but this doesn't seem to be working out. And he was kind of losing hope. And he started asking the question, how much freedom with kids is too much freedom? So with that, I have a story I'd like to share with you guys. And it goes, once upon a time, the animals decided they must do something heroic to meet the problems of a new world. So they organized a school. They had adopted an activity curriculum consisting of running, climbing, swimming, and flying. To make it easier and administer the curriculum, all the animals took all the subjects. The duck was an excellent swimmer, in fact, better than his instructor, but he made only passing grades in flying and was very poor in running. Since he was slow in running, he had to stay after school and also drop swimming in order to practice running. This was kept up until his webbed feet were badly worn and he was only an average swimmer. But average was acceptable in the school and nobody worried about that, except the duck. The rabbit started at the top of the class in running, but had a nervous breakdown because of so much makeup work in swimming. The squirrel was excellent in climbing until he developed frustration in the flying class, where his teacher made him start from the ground up instead of the treetop down. He also developed a Charlie horse from overexertion and then got a C in climbing and a D in running. The eagle was a problem child and was disciplined severely. In the climbing class, he beat all the others to the top of the tree, but insisted on using his own way to get there. At the end of the year, an abnormal eel that could swim exceedingly well and also run, climb, and fly a little had the highest average and was valedictorian. The prairie dogs stayed out of school and fought the tax levy because the administration would not add digging and burrowing to the curriculum. They apprenticed their children to a badger and later joined the groundhogs and gophers to start a successful private school. So, obviously the moral of this story is every kid is different and has different things they're good at, and not allowing them the freedom to do it their way is not going to get them anywhere in life. So my dad understood this pretty well, and he decided to continue letting me just have the freedom that I wanted. He even bought me my own laptop and gave me a cubicle with internet access at his work. So I continued to watch Netflix and be unproductive for several weeks, if not months. And after that, one day, he was super patient. He figured eventually I would get bored of that and start finding my own interests. So one day we were driving to work, and I noticed these protesters on the side of the road. And they were standing behind a sign And normally I would have completely looked past these protesters, except they were on the ground making out behind the sign. And this caught my eye, and I thought that was funny because normally when you're protesting something, at least in my head, you're passionate about it and you're trying to get people's attention and tell them about your problems with the world. But these people seemed like they could care less. So during lunch, I decided to go walk down there, and I approached them about it. And I started asking them all these questions, like, hey, what's going on? And they handed me a flyer, and in a nice way told me to beat it. So I took the flyer back to my dad's office and showed him, and he said, oh, this is one of the unions that's local here in Utah, and they're protesting something that this company has done. Well, I decided this was pretty interesting, and by this point, I had watched almost every interesting show on Netflix, so I was kind of done with that. And I decided that maybe this would be a cool thing to write an article about. I wasn't necessarily looking to get published, but, it would be interesting. So I called the union, but they wouldn't answer. They wouldn't answer the email. And I actually called them probably 3 times a day for the next week, and they wouldn't answer. They wanted nothing to do with me. So if there's one thing I had learned from my dad, it was how to be really pushy. And I decided to call this company that they were protesting about. So I called the company, and they said, oh, those guys from the union are protesting because we hired these non-unionized workers to do our drywall. And the problem with hiring unionized workers is they can charge you all these crazy fees, like workers' compensation and all these insurance fees. So I went back to my dad's office, and I told him what I had found, just to kind of show him that I was actually doing something. And he said, I have a connection at Utah Business. I've published there before. Why don't you turn this into an article, and we'll see if we can get it published. So I started working on the article, but I also knew that there are 2 sides to every story. So I figured if I can't get the union on the phone or to email me back, I should just go try and find them in person. So my dad and I hopped in the car, drove down to the union. We walked in, and I introduced myself, and the lady knew right away who I was. And in case you guys didn't know, unions are really shady. And so we sat in the lobby for about 45 minutes just waiting to get someone to come talk to us about this article. And finally, the receptionist went and got someone and brought him down. And I explained that I was doing the article and that I wanted their side of the story. So he wouldn't answer any of my questions about the protests. That was a very sensitive subject for them. But they did give me a new direction for my article about worker misclassification, which was a problem they were having at that time in Utah. So I pursued that story, which took me all around Salt Lake, chasing different people down. And what I hadn't realized was that by my dad giving me this free time and stepping back, letting me get the entertainment out of my system, letting me just be free without him imposing restrictions, I had actually started to want to do something productive with my life. And I was still going to Corner Canyon half-time, which I still am, just for the social aspect of it. But I was noticing a huge difference where in school, I would spend hours of my time doing these papers and projects that would get maybe 5 minutes glance from a teacher and then thrown in the garbage. And I felt like I was just throwing hours of my life away with that. Whereas on these freedom days, I was allowed to go be creative and work on what I want, because in my mind, people are naturally a very creative species. Like, we were born to create, and that's how we survive, is by creating. And without freedom, we aren't allowed to create or bring a piece of us into the world. So eventually, I got this article drafted, and I submitted it to Utah Business Magazine, and the lady was very interested and kind, and she was working with me until she found out I was a 17-year-old in high school. At which point all communication stopped, and I couldn't get her to answer the phone. So I went into my dad's office one day feeling really discouraged, because I thought, there's this big bad adult world out here that I'm trying to contribute to and be a part of, because quite frankly, my generation and all these younger generations are the future of the world. But I feel like at this point, when we try to bring something we've created, we get shut down, and we get told to go back to school and follow the rule system. And he just sat there and he said, I think that you have something really great here, and if she won't publish it, somebody will, and you just need to find that person. Well, I didn't really want anyone else to publish it because it was Utah Business Magazine, but all summer I kept trying to contact her, and I reached out to a few different publishers to no avail. It didn't work. So one day I decided to do what I had done with the union, which was in-person contact, which I had learned was really effective. So I got in my car and I drove down to Salt Lake, and I found the building that this publisher worked from. And I went inside to try and find her, and she was actually at lunch, but I gave her a call and I said, hey, I came and stopped by, hoping to talk to you. Give me a call if you have a second. So then I got in my car, drove home, and I was about 5 minutes away from my house when I get this call, and it was the publisher. And she said, I'm sorry I missed you, but I wanted to let you know we'll be publishing your article in the August edition of the Utah Business Magazine, and we'll also be paying you $275. Does that seem fair to you? And I was like, yeah, that seems really fair. And I told my dad, and he cried. Don't tell him I told you that. But he was so happy, because all of this work I had put into doing something that I thought had value and putting that out there had finally paid off. So that was when I had what I like to call my wake-up moment number one, which was something I wish I would have learned a long time ago, but because I had never been given the opportunity to have my own freedom and do what I wanted, I never really had it. So wake-up moment number one was I can be resourceful and find ways around problems, which you'd think I would have discovered that before, but like I said, without freedom, you can't really become resourceful. So after that, I started working on all these different projects that I wanted to do. I started a watch company called Hip Wristwear, which I'm currently working on right now. I organized the Utah Business Fair, which was held today and turned out to be successful. And through all that, I had one more wake-up moment, and that was I can do just as good a job at things as adults, and at least for me, the best way to be successful was by not following the system set in place by adults. And that sounds really harsh in a way, but I found that by being resourceful and not following those systems, it was a lot easier to find ways around problems. And talking to a lot of my friends, they have so many good ideas, but they don't have the opportunity like I've had to actually do something with their ideas or like start building their own future. They're just so focused on getting a high school diploma and getting the grade on that piece of paper that says they got 100% in the class, which is really sad to me because I would hope by the time I graduate high school, I've built enough of a foundation for myself that I can actually do something with my life and not go straight into college. So my dad, in telling a lot of adults about my experience and his experience with this freedom-based learning system, was shut down, and a lot of adults didn't want to hear what he had to say because they were so afraid of their kid not getting a high school diploma or, wasting their time like I did. But I think all kids will have to go through a phase of not being productive and just doing what they want. But eventually, I think everyone will come to a wake-up point and want to add something back to the world. So, to tie it back into the story that I told at the beginning, freedom-based education allows for kids to excel in what they're good at and not just be stuck in this system of being average is okay and being made to feel like because they're not good at one thing and someone else is, that they're a failure in life. And that is my experience. So.